It's never the discussion, do I have to go full flexibility, just an AMR solution, HEV solution, or do I have to stick to all the technology like traditional conveyor technology? It's why don't take the best of both worlds?
Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast. I'm Marissa Dierlam, Head of Marketing for TGW North America. Today I'm joined by Philipp Moser, Head of Sales Engineering Mobile Robotics, and Dexter Weber, Business Development Manager for TGW North America. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So in a previous episode of our podcast, where we talked about the latest trends in supply chain and automation technologies, naturally mobile robotics came up. And so I'd like to explore that topic a bit more with both of you today, especially comparing it to fixed automation, maybe some, myths or misconceptions about mobile robotics, best use cases, all that stuff. So to kick things off, Philipp, how would you define mobile robotics in general? And what do you see as the main benefits of mobile robotics?
For me, everything comes down to basically three keywords: scalability, flexibility, and reliability, compared to traditional technology, which TGW still has in portfolio, but as a global company trying to investigate further into new technologies, HEV is one part of that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like that definition could cover quite a wide variety of technologies. So maybe how would you categorize some of the common types of mobile robotics, whether it's AMRs, HEVs, automatic forklifts? I'm sure I'm not thinking of other ones, but what does that look like?
I think it's difficult to think of everything once you're not too familiar with it. But in generally speaking, in TGW, we differentiate between top-load HEVs and forklift HEVs. By meaning HEVs, there could be a misconception that, you're selling old school technology. It's an HEV. You have to have a magnetic tape on the floor and QR codes and stuff. Then you have AMRs, which apparently do not need those things, but they all are under the umbrella of mobile robotics. Modern day HEVs or AMRs have one differentiating factor, and that's the software. Component-wise, it's still the same thing, but it's just different features you want to use. So HEVs are not old school at all. We do not have to use magnetic tape or QR codes, if you want to say so. We use a different method of navigation, and therefore they offer broad variety of what we are able to do within our standard solutions.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's another term I've heard before, tugger mobile robotics. What are those exactly?
Basically, that HEV goes underneath one of your shelves, carts, whatever you want to call it, and there is one small pin connecting it up to the shelf and then pulling it from underneath and moving along its way, and does the given task, which we get from the IT system above, or the worker who is just pressing a button on a tablet.
From attending, Dex and I have been attending different trade shows for the last years. It seems like a lot of the innovations are definitely being focused in the mobile robotics, making them better, smarter, adding different types of mobile robotics. Where do you see mobile robotics technology going over the next couple of years?
I think in the sheer opportunities where you can implement them, maybe different temperature zones. But that's a technological problem. I know shuttle-wise, we're able to have it in deep freeze and stuff. Maybe that's a way to go. Battery technology evolves rapidly. That could be a key factor for the future. Having longer lasting batteries, performing longer shifts without being charged once.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an option. Security features, safety features will probably arise. In Europe, we have the problem with NIS2 and Cybersecurity Act. So there has to be something worked on where we can protect us, but also the customer.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is a wide variety of what could happen. Maybe they could interchange the tool set which they have on top, similar to like an industrial robot or whatever. So that would be something
That could be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole cobot aspect, or some of the things you might add to a mobile robot in the future, or interfaces between maybe workstations, things like that, are going to naturally, I think, evolve over time along with the robots.
That's for sure. Interaction between humans and the robot itself. That could be a case where major improvements will be made if it's a humanoid robot or a human worker. It's not by replacing human workforce, but enhancing them in their capabilities, supporting them, and getting rid of tedious tasks, which you and I or Dexter sometimes occur in our daily business, which we don't like. So you have a mobile robot who is able to support us on this topic.
Yeah, and thinking about safety too, and you kind of touched on, the technology that's guiding the vehicles. Do you see that sort of advancing too? You mentioned like you don't necessarily have to do magnet striping anymore, but where is that technology kind of going?
As said, we are not using magnetic tape primarily. We're using it for enhancing precision, for dedicated positions within the fulfillment center, our warehouses, maybe for handover stations. But 99% of the time, we're relying on contour navigation. I always try to explain it the most non-technical way possible.
Good.
So I have a vacuum robot at home. And if you start setting it up, first thing it does, it maps out your whole apartment, your house. And that's contour navigation. So it recognizes by itself, where are the obstacles, where can I go, and where can I not go. Sometimes it goes over the carpet and you have a problem, but that's for the Roombas. But it's similar to what HEVs are doing, at least with contour navigation. And then this could be a case that we switch on to 3D navigation, camera navigation. But the devices we are primarily focused on are having contour navigation by LiDAR technology. And in addition to that, 3D obstacle awareness. And then we take the best of both worlds, basically. Yeah. But that could be a major improvement in the following years, yes.
Yeah, very interesting.
It's not just what's the technology, like the radar cameras on the mobile robot itself, but it's maybe the processes outside of it. So if you think of like fencing off an area where you don't have people intervening, there's a safety factor. That's a big piece of it. But the other benefit you get to that is maybe higher performance because you don't have to slow down in case of any obstacles falling into there. So I think that's another aspect of safety that we're seeing among people implementing these mobile robots in their facilities.
Definitely.
Yeah, makes sense. I think what's interesting too in general about mobile robotics is they're kind of seeing the flashy new kid on the block. Everybody's very interested in them. Like I said, they're showing up at a lot of trade shows, but the technology has been around for a while. So why do you think there is such a hype around mobile robotics right now?
I think there's a shift in the market. It's not just the intralogistics industry, but globally speaking, it's difficult for companies to do a proper forecast how their growth is coming along. A couple of years ago, you had a 5-year plan, maybe a 10-year plan if you're very keen on your data. But since all that COVID and supply chain came up,
it's
6
nearly
months,
impossible to make a plan.
a year, that's everything. And there is something where HEVs have one big USP. You can scale as you grow. So you don't have to plan your warehouse and your base build out and your future expansions and occupy space, which depending on your numbers, you may need, but you may not need. And therefore, we can have solutions with the customers where we say, okay, that's your base. Year by year, you expect these numbers. You can add some robots until a certain point because
maybe you run out of room at some point.
At some point, you run out of room. And by pushing more HEVs in the same room, maybe the solution does not get better and you create a bottleneck anyways. So I would say scalability is one key piece which changed the last couple of years and let's say gave HEVs kind of a hype.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I think definitely scalability is one of the biggest pieces to it. I think part of it also might just be the perception of automation in general. So I think there was this thought for a long time, like, oh, if you're going to be using automation, it's going to be very expensive, which can be the case, of course, but sometimes it's not the case. And I think mobile robots are a great way to start, where you have like an easier return on investment. And I think a lot of companies are seeing it this way. I would say one of the other big aspects is maybe just more of a demographic change in the workforce. So I think you have a huge population retiring, a new workforce coming in, and maybe their expectations of a working environment might be a little bit different. So when you think of working in a warehouse, how can I remove maybe walking 10 miles a day or lifting heavy things with a pallet jack and trying to walk around the warehouse? How can I work in an environment that's safer and doesn't exhaust me so much physically? And so I think companies are looking towards these mobile robots to maybe move some of these heavier items or eliminate some of the walking. So I see that as like another piece for growth in it. And then I think the other aspect is just you have a lot of like startup e-commerce companies.
Sure.
You have TikTok Shop and some things popping up too, where there's new ways to reach people and get them to invest in something. And so when you're in this high growth e-commerce kind of phase, sometimes it's nice to have a technology that you can quickly scale to your point earlier, and just really build up on your abilities with that technology.
Yeah, I think another big point is everything has to be quicker. Once you order something, you want it there the next day.
Right.
So maybe a couple of years ago, 2 shifts, 3 shifts were natural, a common thing. And the demographic change Dex described is like there's more people focusing on their work-life balance, and that's kind of one shift is fine, but you as a company still have to provide the same output
out the door.
by switching to some automation. You have HEVs, they can do 24/7 basically, with just a lesser impact in workforce. You still have to have maintenance and stuff done, but they can do the tedious task and support the employees the best way possible. And they can do their tasks in the night, like replenishment, the transport to the workstations during the shift. But all the other stuff is working in the background where you do not need the support of a workforce.
Yeah. Well, I think that leads really well to the next question I had, which is, what are some of the best use cases then for mobile robotics? Is it always just, it's a foot in the door to automation, or what are the best applications for it?
I think in the beginning we touched it a little bit. Like long transports where you have to walk or drive your forklift and lose a lot of time. These things you can automate. Just the replenishment or storing, retrieving from a highway warehouse to the workstation. If it's a pallet, if it's a tote from a mini load or a shuttle, depending on performance. But there are use cases you can go all along. You can do the simple transport use cases. You can do GTB solutions where you supply a shelf to a workstation and then do the picking. You can tug carts, as we spoke before. You can do forklift transports. You do replenishment, as said before, but I think it's difficult to condense everything. Because the opportunities are just so broad.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you can imagine it theoretically.
Whatever you can imagine is a tricky one, because imagination is very creative. But I would say there are a lot of situations we are thinking in because of our daily business, and we know the industry, which we never thought of. And one customer says, I have a specific need for that one. And then we go there together, figure it out, and possibly find a technical solution which fits for that customer need.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different use cases coming more from the industrial consumer goods segment of our company. I see a lot of transportation use cases with like big and bulky items. So if you think of furniture, appliances, or maybe in a production environment, bringing the goods from storage to a production line, more for that line replenishment, or maybe even prepping finished pallets for outbound and sorting them at the dock doors to be ready to be loaded. It just can save a little bit on the labor aspect, but also keeps consistent material flow. And as your business grows, it's maybe easier to scale. So I see a lot of different use cases. I think definitely the goods to person aspect is one of the biggest growing segments of using mobile robotics, as you kind of touched on with the GTP stuff. And I think that the reason why there's a use case there is, if you have a certain level of throughput, mobile robots make a lot of sense for it. They can be very cost effective. And then I think as you kind of progress up a little bit, you make maybe more of a case for fixed automation or a blend of mobile and fixed automation. So it can vary a lot, but it's really just the individual use case. And it could also be like the building type.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's maybe easier to adapt a brownfield, an existing site with some mobile robots. Of course, there's challenges in making sure you have good walkways and things like that. But that might be an easier, more scalable option than maybe implementing a fixed automation solution in a brownfield, because you may not have the space to really work with it and get it installed. So we kind of have to look at it as a case-by-case basis and figure out, is it mobile? Is it fixed? Is it a blend of both?
Mm-hmm. That's one point you perfectly described. It's never the discussion, do I have to go full flexibility, just an AMR solution, HEV solution, or do I have to stick to older technology like traditional conveyor technology? It's why don't take the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can always combine the two differences and as said, take the best of both worlds and then have a solution which works for your needs the best way possible.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are bringing that up. Dex, maybe it'd be interesting then to talk about what is the best part of fixed automation, which is, sometimes it's seen as the old school traditional thing in comparison to mobile robotics. But I think there's still benefits for a lot of our customers with fixed automation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our projects still focus more on the fixed automation side. And I think people see it as more rigid sometimes because you're like physically installing it to the floors. But there's a certain point where you have like high throughput where it often makes sense to have fixed automation. And you can think about it this way. If you're trying to have maybe mobile robots bringing goods to a person, at a certain point, there are so many, robots going back and forth, and you have to keep those areas clear. And, that way you don't have people interrupting it or things falling in the way that slow down the flow. So when you have something maybe like fixed automation, like a ASRS system, like a shuttle, along with some conveyor bringing things to a workstation, you can do it a lot quicker, especially if you need to circulate certain items like around the pick area. So maybe you have one set of goods going to multiple stations. You can definitely do that with mobile automation as well. But at a certain speed, it works really, really well in that area. And then if you think about how you can have multiple levels of conveyor, you're just doing mobile robots. You can build a mezzanine and things like that, but having multiple levels of conveyor, you can keep a lot of the throughput going a little quicker. So I think that's an area where we often see fixed automation take the lead, is just high levels of throughput. Or it could be, if you're doing just shorter distances where you might need conveyor, it could work pretty well.
Sure.
Versus maybe a mobile robot solution where maybe you have a brownfield site and it's just not set up to flow. You've been updating things over the last few decades, so you might have to move something from one end of the building to the far end, and to have that fixed piece, that's just a long stretch of conveyor, and it's maybe blocking off paths where you might need forklifts or things like that to go through. So it just needs to balance out, but high throughput is typically where we see more of the fixed automation.
I think you described it perfectly fine. I think there's a sweet spot for everything. The sweet spot for HEVs is like long distances, not as high in throughput as you mentioned, but still a decent performance.
Yeah.
With the scalability, flexibility kept in mind. Sometimes CDC, ULC fails, then you have a reliability issue. HEV-wise, small USP for us, because one breaks down, the fleet still operates. But there's a sweet spot for everything.
Yeah, so then putting myself in our customer's shoes, I imagine the options can start to become overwhelming. Do I go fully mobile? Do I go fully fixed? Do I land somewhere in between. There's constant innovations in all of these different things. So how do you guys help our customers try to dig into what is the best for their business?
Our customers are not new to the market. They know what's going on. They know their processes. They know their needs, basically. But since our industry offers a broad variety of portfolio from each and every company on the market supplying intralogistics, it can be overwhelming for those and try to pickpocket whatever's best for you. I think key point for customers is finding a partner where you can work out a solution which perfectly fits your customer need, and working towards that solution together, and not like take it or leave it.
Yeah. This is what we offer. Do you want it or not? Yeah.
Right. So first thing, show us your problem. Tell us where you want to have a solution for. We try to work it out together. I think we have a capable team all over the world and to supply the best solutions on the market possible.
Yeah, I think we have to look at this very holistically, like with our customers. So it's not just, hey, what do you want to do in this specific facility? But it may be, hey, what does your overall organizational and supply chain network design look like? So when we try to take that bigger picture view, and then even within an individual warehouse, not just look at maybe one portion of it, but what does your inbound process look like all the way through outbound? And we try to look at which technologies might make the most sense, because every company has different products, different solutions they might need, different building layouts, different availability, and finding labor. So we have to kind of balance all these things together and find what makes sense, whether it's fixed, mobile, blended. So it's really up to us as a systems integrator to help encourage our customers to think holistically and try to take that bigger view for it. So when I think of like different scenarios, for example, of like a blended environment and when we might recommend that. So if I think about like a DIY home improvement industry, you have a lot of big bulky items like mowers, heavy things. Those you might need to transport with mobile robots, where you might want to have more fixed automation in like a shuttle system with a goods to person picking solution for just high volume piece picking. So you're replenishing your stores or doing your e-commerce orders. And it's kind of just pairing those things together. You may have like a AGV forklift, for example, bringing pallets into like a decant station where it gets put into a tote, gets stored into a system. And then you might have an AGV forklift, again, taking a finished pallet away after it's mixed case pallet and bringing it towards that outbound area. So I think for us, we just have to take a big view, take a step back and figure out what makes the most sense where.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, and two, I'm thinking even once you have the solution in place and maybe we relieve their concerns about this is the right technology for them, they still might be hesitant around the whole implementation and realization of things. So in your experience, where have you seen implementations go wrong, and how can they avoid some of those mistakes that happen with either mobile robotics or fixed automation?
Maybe there's a misconception in like taking one HEV and I have a solution for everything. Because if you have a bad process in your system, if you just automate it, it's a bad automated process. So you have to keep in mind that going through your processes and deciding what to automate and why you want to automate it, and then build up on that base. That's for me, it's a key factor to get rolling. Does not mean the HEVs have to be connected to a WM or an ERP system at all. But if you want to fully automate, that's the way to go.
Sure.
And therefore, your processes have to be top notch.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement in terms of processes, but that's one way to go. One HEV, as mentioned, solution for everything. Where once it starts picking up, the solution works, the bigger the fleet gets, the more reliability you have, the more performance you get. And then the scalability factor kicks in.
Sure.
And I think processes, I would like to say that's the key point.
think we've seen some challenges that we'll face. So in one example, just implementing AGVs, they have a lot of great aspects to them, especially in a brownfield site. There are some challenges though, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times to get that higher performance, you might want dedicated lanes for those mobile robots to move back and forth. And if you don't have that, they can, of course, stop when they see an object in front of them.
You choke up the performance.
But you can choke up the performance.
Yeah.
So we've experienced some situations where somebody has implemented AGVs in their facility and then they're just not getting the throughput they expected because there's so many obstacles in the way, and it just wasn't designed in a way where you can easily make all the turn radiuses and things like that are important to the flow of materials. And then, so we've seen it where people have purchased these items and then just kind of had to scale back on them or stop or look into different alternatives or fixed automation to replace it. Another piece where we've seen some failures is there's a lot of startups, which are very exciting. There's a lot of new technologies, but maybe they're not always so proven, or they may not have a network built yet to have a great spare part system. So working with a company, they found a company that makes really nice like forklift AGVs. They were very excited for them. But the challenge was when they needed spare parts, they had to wait so many weeks to get the parts coming, over from Europe to the US.
Yeah.
So if you don't have like a provider that's set for continual support there, you may shut down your operations and not have any options.
Yeah.
So in their scenario, luckily they still had manual forklifts on site. But if you thought to replace all of those with forklift AGVs and then you don't have enough spare parts, how does your operations even work? So I think sometimes when you're chasing the newest technologies, you have to be really aware of the risks that come with it versus something that's maybe proven with a strong support network behind it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for this great overview. Maybe one last closing question for you guys. What common misconception of mobile robotics do you wish people understood better?
That AGVs need the same space as conveyor technology. That's one point, because if you have a connection from A to B, it's usually one line.
Yeah.
You bring the pallet there. That's fine for conveyor technology, but the AGV has to somehow get back. So we need a little bit more space in that regard. And as said before, that I just have to automate and bring one AGV in, and that's the solution for my problems. That's one part. The other thing is, as Dex just described, there's a lot of supply on the market, but they're supplying a product and not an overall solution for a problem. At TGW, we focus on understanding the customer problem, the customer need in a holistic way for their warehouse. And then we have a bright portfolio of what we can take in old school technology and the new cool stuff, if you want to put it this way. And I think there are good projects coming out of it, cool projects coming out of it. And on top of that, we build up cool relationships with our customers. And it's not like a one-time shop at TGW. Yeah. So we aim for long-lasting partnerships and then grow together and design the solutions together.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, definitely. I think one misconception I hear, and this goes for maybe mobile automation, fixed automation, even manufacturing automation, I think there's a lot of fear sometimes that this technology is there to take away jobs. And of course it can replace people in certain environments, but a lot of times it's there to help reduce turnover, but more importantly, make the work environment safer and better and allow humans to take maybe a different approach, learn some new skills, and really evolve in their careers in a different way. And it's made to be, an assistant to them. It's made to be helpful to them. Think of that backbreaking work, bringing pallets, dragging them around with pallet jacks, things like that, lifting heavy goods onto pallets. It's backbreaking work. So this is where it can really help improve the work life for those employees. And I think it just is something that's often perceived in a different way. And it's up to leaders to really highlight, how are you using technology to make lives better?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you both for your time. This has been a great conversation. And thank you to our listeners as well. I hope you'll stay tuned for our next episode of this podcast. you.